That's small.
It's the coffee.
I went to look at this. Small. Stand back. 6 and 9 pages.
It's 30 and I it's needed to work. That's the end of the problem.
It's just chaos. They're got indivisible.
Next item on the agenda is roll call. Amanda? Amanda up there?
Yes.
Okay,
Mayor Bachrid,
present.
Trustee Knudsen,
Here.
Trustee Valentine,
Here.
Trustee Stetler,
Here.
Trustee Smith,
Here.
Trustee Markle,
Here.
Trustee Weber.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum and to continue with the meeting. And the next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
The agenda. Second.
All in discussion?
I said.
Yeah, discussion.
I don't know that I want to necessarily change this agenda, but I would like us to think about moving disbursements out of the consent agenda. And I say that because I think so often people have questions about the disbursements and we run through it too fast. So that's just a thought and I'll just put it out there at this point.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to make a motion for this agenda, but I would just like to put that.
Okay, well, we are going to have a whole discussion at our roles and responsibilities.
30th.
So we can bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next, we have announcements. And since Amanda and her family judged the Christmas lights winners, Amanda, would you like to announce who won the contest this year?
So first place is Tina Walker. Second place is Richard Kinzer. Third place is Ben Graves.
And if you haven't had a chance to drive by Tina Walker's house, I really suggest you should do it. It's a phenomenal display that'll just blow your socks off. I swear to God.
Where is it? What's that? It's good to have the address.
Tina Walker's is 512 Box Elder Avenue. Amanda, what are the other addresses of the other two? No? Can you remember?
Ben Graves is on the corner of Rio Grande and 3rd Street.
Yeah.
And then Richard Kinzer is on Niagara. It's I think 2 or maybe 3 houses down from Napa. It's like looks like a little cabin, but most of her, I think she had like Mickey Mouses up and stuff like that, which was really pretty. So I don't know if they're still up.
Okay. Well, congratulations, all of them. It's beautiful. All right, next on the agenda is recognition of community and guests. Unfortunately, none of the students nor the teacher of the North Fork High School Dance Multimedia class were able to attend tonight. So we're going to have this presentation at another time. So would anyone like to address something that is not on the agenda for tonight? Yes. Now remind you 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Sherry Denvermont from 215 Poplar. And I want to talk about the proposed extension of the cell phone tower on P Hill. Ever since I moved here like 30 years ago, I really enjoyed walking up to the top of P Hill. And it was so beautiful up there. There's a little knoll. And then after I'd been here about 10 years, I think, a man, I can't remember his name, but a resident of Paonia left the property on the top of the hill and kind of down the side to the town in his will, under the condition that it never be commercially developed. And if it was supposed to revert to his other heirs who did not live here. And so then I think it was Clear Thought approached the town and wanted to build a cell phone tower. And so the town just contacted the other heirs and basically bought them off, like offered them part of the fee, part of the lease money. And they didn't live here, so they didn't care if our emblem hill is defaced. And so they came and they literally cut top off the hill. It was kind of a little knoll, and they cut it off. And now it's a big gravel, really ugly thing with some electronic boxes that go and a huge cell phone tower. And it's just really ugly. But I still go up there, and a lot of people go up there and bring their kids and hike up there. And then I read in the DCI that SBA or whoever runs it now wants to extend the tower another 25 feet, putting more additions onto the town. And they want more land around the bottom, which I don't see how they can do that without actually cutting more of the top of the hill off, because they've already got the whole top. The part they flattened out is all covered with gravel, and a truck comes up there and sprays herbicide all the time, so nothing can grow. And I just feel really bad for the man who left the property to the town and his will, and the town totally betrayed him. Just, nobody cared. Everybody wanted their cell phone. And so now everybody does have cell phone service in Paonia, but it's not enough. BSA wants more, and they just want to deface the top of the hill even more and disturb the animals and the birds that live there. And I just think it's horrible. And it said in the DCI that, as Leslie said in the DCI, that ESA.
Time's almost.
Yeah, they've been threatening, they've had gall to threaten the town. That if the town doesn't allow that extension, they're gonna pull their lease. Well, I doubt if they will, I doubt if they would. But it's just, I'm just very upset about it. And I realize humanity has chosen technology over nature. And they don't care if our emblematic hill is totally defaced, but I just want to say I do, and I wanted you to know, because I think a lot of people don't remember.
Sorry, let's write it up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
Yeah, could are you?
I just called on Ms. Patterson. Let her speak.
I want to follow up on Showers. Michelle Patterson, 2nd Street. I want to start by saying that just thank you. This is for the most part a thankless job that you all do as board members. So thank you for being here and for listening. I sent everybody a letter. I sent the board members a letter this week about housing. And honestly, I've been pretty anxious about it because that letter was very black and white. And I know that it does not capture the nuances and the questions, the gray areas, and all of the issues connected to housing in our community. But I tried to keep it simple and very black and white because basically I sent it to get your attention. Time and again, when you bring the public into your planning, whether it's the master planning or retreats or the different events that you've held, housing is one of the top issues that people bring up as a big need in our community. And I know it's a difficult issue to address, but it's an issue that as a board, it's your responsibility to address. And I just have not seen that much happening in terms of housing in our community and finding a way forward that supports our community. So I wanted to get it back to top of mind and to remind you that you do have tools in our existing code you can use to address housing, and that when we're not enforcing our current code, it like we can create some wonderful ordinances and build ordinances that sound great on paper and that really get at the issue, but unless we are communicating and enforcing what's in our code, what we have on paper is really fairly meaningless. So that's my intent with my letter, and I also want to thank Leslie for including that in the packet. It's great. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Patterson?
Just following up with another item about the tower, they want to increase the size and everything. The previous admin and staff spent countless hours, hundreds possibly, and time in meetings talking about dark skies and how it's going to be up there. And if you're thinking of expanding the footprint and lights, obviously they're gonna have lights and everything else. What does that do to that spot there that was supposed to be all dark skies? That's in your master plan. That's, you know, it's futile now. It's all that time is wasted. The public's time, the staff time, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours for a cell tower. That's probably gonna be obsolete pretty soon with the technology that's coming for communication. So why bother? And a lot of expense and everything else. And then it's a shame, again, I didn't know the story of the owner that donated it to the town. That is a slap in the face for anybody that wants to offer the town their property when they're passed. Just think of that.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Brick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Long time no see. So I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. I watched today the video of the first meeting in January where you all talked about the moratorium, and I'm very pleased that so many of you get it with the moratorium. But I want to say that Mary's recitation of her version of the facts going into the moratorium, I would take factual exception to almost every statement that she made. And if you'd like to send an agenda item, I'll come down and go through with you point by point, but I just want to point out one thing. The contract with JDS Hydro did not include the moratorium that was led in 2019. So Mary stated that moratorium was not necessary because it was already in the contract. Is not correct. The contract was for an inventory analysis that did not include the questions of the moratorium. And even though there was an insistence for several months that that was part of the contract, eventually reality won out. And an additional contract was engaged with JDS Hydro for them to study the moratorium. The second thing I want to say is that your agenda item tonight to go to an executive session and talk about hiring from within for the clerk, I think is a violation of the open meeting law. I think that you have already taken action and developed a criteria for the clerk and advertised for the position based on that criteria. I don't know the results of that bit of search, but if you are going to now look to hire from within, you first have to reverse or change the criteria for clerk. This is not a personnel matter, that is a policy decision. And it is not a proper discussion for executive session. I don't see how you can begin a discussion without going through that. And so once you change your criteria and advertise the position again, if someone from within the organization is the best candidate, fine, but I don't see that yet. The third thing I want to say is congratulations. In 3 years, you have more than doubled the budget of the town. And I, for one, don't think I'm getting any more for it. For your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brick. Would anyone else like to address the board? Yes.
I'm Tom Back at 751 Pan American. This is just a procedure question. Did I read where there's only going to be a part of the meeting where people in the audience can ask questions or say something, and then once you get into other discussions of things that people in the audience are not going to be able to ask questions? Is that the procedure?
The procedure is if you have a comment on something that is not on the agenda, that this time is when you address it. As the agenda items come up, the public is always allowed to speak on that specific agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
It's so big.
Pretty easy minutes, disbursements, and then 4 liquor license approvals.
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes,
I'd like to move that J.K. Cider be taken off the consent agenda and disbursements come off the consent agenda so that we can discuss both.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so disbursements and JK Cider have been removed from the consent agenda. Now, can I get a motion to
I'd like to move. Well, we move the consent agenda.
as amended? Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Discussion? Yes,
I just have two minor things about two of the three meeting minutes.
yeah,
And normally we do have an adjournment time in minutes. Isn't that
yeah,
standard?
that is standard.
Two of them do not have the time that we adjourn the meeting, and that's November 29th and December 13th.
Okay,
So if that could just be added in,
sure.
and I think everything else is fine.
Okay, anything else? All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended?
I,
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, let's move on to disbursements then. Discussion on disbursements.
Make a motion to approve the
Okay,
disbursements.
do you have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
Both Paige and I reviewed them today and found things in order.
All right, any other discussion, questions? Yes.
one of the things I'd like to point out is I noticed that this disbursements did not have the budget item next to each of the expenditures, which has been pretty much done for the last half year. So that was not a new way of doing it. It was just that Cindy wasn't able to get those budget line items in the right-hand margin. And I, for one, being on the finance committee and always having questions about the budget, find that very helpful to know what budget item that spending is coming from. So just for anybody who looks at things like I do, it will be back.
Anything else from anyone?
Want to be clear that this includes to what was normally the meeting growth budget items. Expenditures.
Anything from the public? All right, yeah,
Just say one quick thing. Thank you so much for including that gas in there. And that was just for the month from November to December. And that was like $18,000. I've never seen gas receipt before. So I appreciate that. That was for 1 month for like $18,000. Thank you very much.
all right. We have a motion and a second to accept disbursements. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that motion passed. Now let's move on to JK Cider, application for liquor sales. Is there anyone here representing JK Cider? Doesn't look like it. All right,
Okay, so the only thing I wondered about with the liquor, Madam Mayor, if I could.
yeah,
The only thing I wondered about with JK Cider's application is they're coming from Wheat Ridge and they're moving into here to be conducting business on Grand Avenue. And I didn't know what the background was of that company. Typically with liquor licenses, you like to know, have there been violations? Has there been a law enforcement issue? Have there been violations of liquor license itself? Since they're not a local agency, we don't have any of that information in order to approve the liquor license. I just think it'd be due diligence to just check with Wheat Ridge and see, have they been an above board operator? That's all I'm saying.
Can Amanda address that? Amanda is the person who investigates this.
yeah. Amanda? Do you do any kind of investigation on this as you go through this liquor licensing approval?
Not that type, but I did contact the state and they didn't tell me anything. They do have a license up there, and all I did was ask if they could actually use their liquor license that they have up there down here, and they said yes. But other than that, they didn't raise any red flags that, you know, that Wheat Ridge has issues with them up there, so. But I can, if you want, I can contact them again and ask them if there's any violations with their liquor license.
Madam Mayor, I think I'm not concerned about whether they hit the requirements, the state requirements. What I'm concerned about with the liquor licenses, have there been activities? We've had fights, we've had gun fights, all kinds of stuff happening around bars here in town. And so if there were a lot of violations in Wheat Ridge, it'd be good to know that. So that's the only thing. It's more of a law enforcement question than it is a state licensing question.
Matt, do you know, does that stuff get reported to the state when there are law enforcement violations?
There'll be a history of calls to their service address. Whether the state's keeping track of that, or she'll have to go to that particular jurisdiction to get that, I'm not sure. There is a record of those calls.
We just haven't asked for it. I'd like to move that we table this or continue this issue in the next meeting. So we do find out that, yes, this business has been conducted well before we bring it into town.
Do we have any legal ramifications for that as far as timelines on this liquor?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
so at the bottom of that license, it says local, notice to local licensing. If you guys can approve or deny it, the reasons are on there. If you see them.
I think there are some specifics.
Yeah, so you can specifically either deny for the, excuse me, for the issues that are in that area, in that box area.
So I don't think so.
Where are we?
So-
30.
Yeah.
So page 30, so where it says notice to local licensing authority. So those are the specific reasons that the town can deny him.
But we're not denying it. What we're asking is to table it. And my question is,
Okay.
is there a time issue on this? Is there a certain amount of time that we have to either approve or deny this?
I mean, I can take that if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so the town's jurisdiction is very limited when it comes to this particular item because they already have an existing license in good standing, and all they're asking for is an extension of their premises to this liquor sales room. So the state gives you very limited ability to deny something like this, and those limits are specified on page 30. And if you see when the application was submitted versus how long you have to object to the application, it's actually beyond that jurisdiction. And I think part of this was a transitional issue, in the staff where there was not, this wasn't submitted timely. So you have very limited ability to deny this at this point. In the future, if you have objections, the board will have to see this within 10 days for events lasting 3 consecutive days or less, or for events lasting 4 more consecutive days, you have 45. So if you look at when it was submitted on October 20th, 2022, there's actually very limited ability to impose any conditions or deny this. So you're kind of a little bit stuck here.
So we either can approve or deny tonight, and that's about it.
Yeah, there's not even really an ability. It doesn't matter whether you approve it, essentially. I know that's really getting into the weeds, but you would have had the ability to object had you done that within the 45 days. But since it's beyond that, this is deemed approved essentially on the state's approval of it. So
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, so then so it doesn't matter whether we move to approve or not at this point.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
traditionally liquor applicants do make an appearance before the board. It's a public hearing.
No, it's not.
Well, they do make an appearance. Every liquor applicant in this district has for years and years. And whether they decide not to, we've postponed approving liquor licenses because there was no one to discuss the matter with. The applicant was not in the meeting, and that's happened time after time.
Well, it seems like legally we have no choice here that. it
We're
is
not
technically-
denying the
Right, but
license. We are
technically it's all-
postponing it until they appear before us.
But according to our attorney, it is technically. And will be approved by the state. Yeah, Mr.
A
Webb.
couple of points. Rick's talking about new liquor licenses. That's different.
Right.
Second, Dave, you're concerned about liquor violations during a publicly available database on the state. So if you want to review it to see if they've had any problems in Wheat Ridge, it's there.
Thank you, Mr. Markle.
I'm for the liquor application just as a matter of form.
All right, second. Discussion?
I second
Discussion?
it.
Yes.
Dave, regarding your concerns, the only information that we have at this time is the statement that they ended, I guess, here on page 34 about themselves. So it's a small operation. They say they make less than 100 or 1,000 gallons of cider annually. And they're moving their complete operations to Back River Road. It doesn't seem like, based on the description that I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, but based on the description that they give of themselves, it's unlikely to me that they would be troublemakers.
Anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Watt.
Suzanne Watson. I just want to point out to you, I think something I'm a little bothered by is that this is in a consent agenda. And this consent agenda is kind of a new thing that we've been doing. It is under the consent agenda, right?
No.
Okay, it was, for some reason, it was on my agenda.
Well, we pulled it out.
You took it out?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that you can look in the future so people don't have to take things out because the consent agenda should be really non-controversial. And so thanks for doing that. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was looking at the map that's on page 32, and I have to admit I was quite confused. Because this is the bookstore in the front. Is that the right address?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the back, there is an apartment on that right-hand side, which is now turning into a storage area apparently. And they're abandoning the apartment. So is that anything that we have to worry about for a change of use? Because they had to have gotten a change of use to put the apartment in.
Well, that was when it was
Right.
redone a long time ago.
It wasn't that long, but it was probably 6, 7 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, they're now abandoning it as an apartment. Do we have a reverse issue of needing any kind of a zoning?
Well, I would suggest you take that up with Leslie.
Well, and
at a different time.
I don't know enough to answer.
okay, because I found that kind of interesting that they're turning that. And what's on the left, which is a walkway, that is part of the entrance into the bookstore. So, okay, just we're losing housing. Let me put it that way.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve this liquor license. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next up is staff reports.
Hey, I have a shorter staff report this time. Yeah. Okay, so we've reached agreement with SGM and that master agreements on your agenda for approval. Nick will be speaking to you about that later. On land use issues, the only updates I have is that Corey did go look at the sergeant fence because there was a concern that possibly encroaching on town property. We did not find that to be so that's been cleared up in our estimation. And then we had a meeting last week with the Delta County School District to go over a boundary adjustment that they're applying for. They're not adding or removing any lots. They're dedicating the property that is on the intersection that we're planning to rebuild to the town. And they have some public sidewalks. You know, I think those lots were formed a long time ago. And there's some public sidewalks on their land, so they're deeding that land to the town. So we're going to benefit from it. And then they've got, because they're selling the building, they're just reconfiguring the lot lines so that all the buildings will have the proper setbacks for zoning and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a big cleanup. It's not anything. It's gonna results in substantial change. And so what I would like to ask you is we discussed waiving your $500, what we call it, or what the town calls a minor subdivision, I call it a boundary adjustment fee, because we are benefiting from this cleanup. So if you're okay with that, we will waive it.
And this actually, the town is gaining property from this.
Strange.
Yeah, I think it's administrative.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's okay with it. And they've been great to work with, and somehow they found an old application to send me that actually said boundary adjustment, which is what I think your code should say, but it doesn't. So at one point you had a boundary adjustment process. I don't know what happened to it. And we also put on the agenda for receipt the JDS hydro study that was funded by DOLA. The next thing, Corey's here to talk about, and so is Jeremiah, if you have any questions. So we've been meeting every Tuesday, often for 3 to 4 hours, to discuss the water and sewer project. We're sort of taking all this reports, information, and sorting through to make them projects that are fundable with all the parts that need to be on there. And, I've attached this list tonight, but what we're trying to sort through is what needs to be done right now. Like, we cannot wait for grants or loans. And this list is what we think needs to be done right now. You'll note there's 2 big expenditures on there. One is for this track vehicle, which I'll expect or have Corey and Jeremiah address. The other is for some water rights legal work that we're going to need to do. I don't know if that's going to be a figure that covers things, but at least I wanted to get something in there so you guys can progress as we go through this process. So if you have any questions about that list, that's why Jeremiah is here to talk about them.
If I have 2 questions. The first is about the sergeant fence. So it begs the question, I didn't know, what is the meaning of the surveyor's pin that is on the south side of her fence?
So I didn't actually find that survey pin on I didn't go onto their property.
It's actually in the public. I just went and looked at it again. So I just pulled into the parking lot and you just walk over, and where her fence meets the neighbor's fence.
Okay.
And her fence comes out about 1.5 feet from that pin. And the pin has a line on it, and I could send you a picture of it. But if you didn't, I'm quite concerned that if you didn't look at that pin, which is a pretty new surveyor's pin by Willard, whoever they are, Wilmore.
Yeah.
And if you didn't look at that, with all due respect, I'm kind of questioning the meaning of the pin and why that pin, which is 1.5 feet into the fence. The fence extends 1.5 feet to the east from the pin towards the town right of way. So I didn't know if you saw the pin and what the significance of the pin is.
So what I went to look at more was like if any part of that fence basically made it to where we couldn't access our easement there. And we can still access our sewer line there. It's not impeding on anything that I would need to access.
But Paige is correct that the fence does have to be on the property line, because if they are encroaching, then yes.
Yeah.
And that's my concern, is we're giving away town property
Right.
way too often inadvertently. And this is one of the ones I'm very concerned that is the case.
Okay.
So I could send you the picture I took today
Yeah.
of the pin sitting at the intersection of the neighbor's metal wire fence and her fence.
Yep.
If you would humor me and look at that,
Yeah.
I would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I did notice the offset in the 2 fences. If we was looking around there, I couldn't see anything. And obviously, when we looked at it too, it was just after a snow. So it kind of.
You may not have seen it, and we
Yeah.
do have the survey. There's actually quite a bunch of information that was received through a CORA request on that fence. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not.
I could share some of that with you at some point. I think I have some of it electronic because I feel like she has encroached on town property based on the configuration and where the pin is located. So I will share you the photos and other documents if that would help.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then my second question is on the list for the water and sewer improvements. And first of all, I asked Cindy this question as we were leaving this afternoon, that a lot of the money that was not spent in 2022 has been brought forward to 2023. So it may look like we're dipping into reserves, but it's actually money that's there for this purpose.
Yeah, so what we're
Right.
basically saying is where we budgeted it last year, we didn't spend it, then we're reappropriating that money for this list. But there may be additional money that we have to pull from our rescue funds for. But we do feel it's strongly enough that these are very important items to get as soon as we can that we're recommending.
And if I could just add one more, the one entry here is the 50,000 for the water rights legal work. I'm wondering if, again, I don't know exactly what that means, but we are having an executive session on the 31st to hear about the water rights. Approving this tonight, is that premature when we haven't?
No, it's
heard?
just, I'm just letting you know.
This is an opening for
We
discussion.
want to move quickly after the 30th, and this gives you the ability to.
Thank you. And that's, you weren't putting the cart for the horse. Thank you.
The other thing that we're not going to spend right away is Jeremiah wants to look farther into the chlorine analyzer conversion, but we'll, as soon as he determines what the best option is. So, any other questions, Thomas?
Yeah, can we get some, just an outline as to where this stuff is going and what the urgency is at this time?
Okay, I have a list in front of me.
Oh, pardon me.
See, peristaltic pumps, that's for wastewater and landwater treatment plant that allows us to dose chemicals. We don't have any backups right now because we have 3 out for repair. Tripod and 2 harnesses are so that we can follow CERTA protocols when we're going into the PRV bolts to do that work. It's considered a, what do you call it, a confined space. Yeah, thank you. Tabletop tubidimeter and standards, that's an instrument that allows us to reference our turbidity analyzers and treatment plant. So if we ever get a false reading or something like that, we can grab a sample and verify that we're not getting basically dirt into our treatment water. Chemical transfer pump is for the wastewater treatment plant where we're transferring sodium sulfate and chlorine often, and we have a hand pump, and so we're getting exposed to chemicals. The chemical spill basin is for the wastewater treatment plant again. That'll allow us to mix up bigger batches of chemicals, so we don't have to deal with that like every other day, basically. The grounding rings are for the Lamborn treatment plant. Basically, we end up with static electricity that causes our flow meters to read 0 so we're getting false readings in our flow our flow meters, diaphragm and pilot valve. Oh, okay, that one's another. Those are replacement parts for another PRV that's in the Lamborn treatment plant. And so basically right now, well, I don't know if you need to know all that. I'll just summarize for you quick. The servo board, the servo board is also for Lamborn. We have a modulating valve that controls the flow of the raw water coming into the treatment plant. It's not something that we need right now today, but if that goes down, we can't get any water into the treatment plant. We're going to be out for 3 months trying to find that. So that's one of those things we need to have on hand now, just in case. So I'm not necessarily defending that line item, the track vehicle, but we've gone back and forth. We need reliable transportation up to the springs. Like right now, the last Corey can add to this, but I wanted, this is kind of a funny note, Steve Kostler, he said I can go up horseback with him from the valley.
Also, we were just looking at metering the springs, which is a big deal. And we're gonna have to be able to have something to access those year round.
Including snow.
Yeah.
And some mud.
Was there a vehicle that you guys had in mind for that one?
I was looking around trying to price out just used snowcats and stuff like that. They're even really expensive, so we're currently just looking at options of things that could possibly work.
Check on. Okay, so the chlorine analyzer and conversion, so we have a chlorine analyzer that looks like it's obsolete, and it's not. It's actually our turbidimeter is going to be obsolete very soon, which means we won't be able to get spares. So it's roughly the same amount to replace those, but really that should read turbidimeter analyzer. Solenoids for the treatment plant. All of our valves are pneumatic, and those solenoids open and close the valves. We've used up all of our spares, so we have none right now, and that's for 10 of them, so they're like $50 a piece. Pressure relief valves, yeah, 16.5. So that's the second half of the PRV order. We need to get those in. Divers for the 2 million gallon tank. That's so we can get a fresh look at the inside of the tank, so that SGM can come up with a project manual for it. One of the things they really want to look at is the rafters on that tank, because if the rafters are shot, that might mean we need a new roof, and then we might be looking at we just need to figure that out.
And they're coming the 29th.
Yeah, right up. Leak detection for the water system. So we have apparent losses of about like 46%. Real losses we estimate to be around 40%. There's things like analyzers flow meters that could be reading wrong. But we're pretty certain we have leaks in the system. Something that to note is that we have plenty of metallic pipe, and we have fairly corrosive soils. So if we have pinpricks in that metallic pipe, we're gonna have issues fast. It's gonna go from like not a big issue to all of a sudden lines that are blown out. Water rights status, water rights legal work. From my perspective as an operator, I need to know which springs I can pull from at the right parts of the year, basically, and also like when our springs aren't going to beneficial use, like the town's actually using them, we need to make sure that they're spilling back into the drainage basin, so lower downstream users are getting your water. So we just need to clarify all that. And then, oh great, I'm glad this made it on there. The annual service agreement for the clock plant membranes. So Paul is the manufacturers of the membranes, the membranes in the clock plant, and we just need to have them 24/7 to be able to call for questions, to troubleshoot things. Every other treatment plant that I've talked to about Paul, they have the 24/7 hotline. So that's it in a nutshell. That's everything.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Rick, did you have something?
Just wanted to say that there's no line item there for weirs or water measurement for the springs, and that's something that, in order to get the moratorium ended, that's absolute, and we need a couple of years of data.
Yeah, so this is what we have cash for now.
Right.
We're in the capital improvement plan. We're throwing the spring meters into that funding request.
So on this list, we have what's called spring redevelopment, which includes that, and we're going to go for grants to fund that this year.
Are we going to fence the springs this year?
I don't.
Because that's raising.
So that question is, we have the spring redevelopment project, and there's a lot of detail in here that Jeremiah put together. And so we're planning to go for a grant package with that. We've started discussions with the granting agencies on the best way to do that. And Villa's having some work done for us with the state demographer, so we can determine what our eligibility. The grant programs that are available are the quickest way we can get there, but it's probably going to be in 2024 that we can do the spring redevelopment. I mean, if you want to talk about doing things in between, like fencing and things like that, we can with cash. The problem is that we don't have a lot of cash and you're gonna need matches for the grants. So we're trying to preserve as much as we can so we can leverage those cash dollars for bigger grant dollars and get some of these projects done.
We have some discussion with the CDPHE with the request to keep cows out of the springs, because that's grazing ground for rovers, and the cows are in those springs all summer long.
Yeah, the springs we're pulling from are fenced right now. We have some junior rights to other springs that we're not utilizing right now.
And for the clock plant especially.
Yeah, especially. And you know, we have ways to deal with that. One thing that did come up that at the clock treatment plant was Dalapon, which is a pesticide. And I called the Forest Service and they're like, we have no idea where that came from. So that's something we really need to get to the bottom of, more so than dealing with. I'm not worried about the cow poop right now, to be honest, because I know we can deal with that. But the Dalapon is something that we need to figure out, like where it's coming from. The Forest Service said it's not them, so we got to figure that one out. Yeah.
Rick, so one thing that was approached to me in the Water Advisory Committee meetings a couple of months ago was using volunteer help to get the springs cleared out. Right now, they're so totally overgrown, some of them, that the fences have to come down. Right. They have to be trimmed and then new fencing put back up. So possibly we have CIRSA can cover up to 50 volunteers. We paid for that. And the meeting that we're going to be having in January, I wanted to bring that subject up on the agenda. Was it the Western Slope Conservation Center was working on? You were talking about volunteers before.
Yeah, we can use them to get volunteers up there. I know Knutson there was also interested. We got a lot of people in the house that would be willing to go up to the springs and help out. So,
and there's some local Kevin O'Brien approached me about doing it, and I think Dave, you were interested in doing it too. Yeah, so we could do some preliminary work that would make it easier when we actually do the more comprehensive work that Leslie's talking.
Now, I want to prevent any rumors. We don't have any pesticides in our water.
Yeah.
It doesn't go into our water.
It's a whole different side of the mountain where that's stemming from. So.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, anything else on that? Yes, Dave.
Two things. One, on the track vehicle, I know up at Electric Mountain Lodge, they have refitted a van, and I've also seen this up by Crested Butte where they refit four-wheelers just with bolt-on parts, and you get a track vehicle, and then you just take those off in the summer and put your wheels back on. So I just throwing that out there as something that would be really inexpensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, second, let me get to that page. The other thing is, I thought when we had the water emergency that there was a leak detector that was purchased by the town, and we had that in our equipment. So that was a couple of years ago when we had the emergency.
You don't mind?
Yeah. Oh, well, just we're at capacity, and we need to canvas the entire system now, so that when we go and apply for grant money, we know like which metallic pipe should come out right now. So that's kind of the idea of like utilizing a contractor right now. They can, for like $1,200 a day, they can cover about 5 miles of pipe. So really, we're going to focus on the metallic pipe, not really the PVC. We should be able to get to it all in a day or two. So that was the idea. Yeah.
We do have that leak detector that was purchased also. We don't have really any legitimate training manuals or anything. We've had it out, trying to figure it out. None of us are really sure what we're supposed to listen for, you know, there's not any. This noise means this, you know what I mean? And you hear a lot of stuff that you're not used to hearing, so some of it is just gonna be simple training, finding, see if we can get somebody out here to teach us how to use that. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, okay. Okay, so the good news. We are working with these funding agencies. There's a couple of loaning agencies, USDA and RCAC, that has been suggested to us by DOLA, but their interest rates are high. And I'm kind of not convinced that we should spend much time with them. But CDPHE right now is 3% for moderate income communities and 2.55% for low income communities. The good news is that we're a disadvantaged community. We're at least going to see 80% loan forgiveness. And I, you know, just based on my experience with 2 other communities, and I think Lake City was a similar kind of economic stratification of the households there to Paonia, we got 100% within 2 years. So, you know, I think that this is, I know that things have taken a long time to address, but at least right now, there is so much money out there for principal forgiveness. It's the time that you could move ahead in a big way and get a lot of this stuff addressed. So we are working a lot of different, Mary and I are meeting with the Colorado Water District. Apparently they have grant funds, so we're working all angles right now. A couple of grants are gonna be due in the next month, the Small Systems Grant from CDPHE and CDBG, and so we're actively working on those. And then the one we talked about today was to try and get money through the Conservation District. Jeremiah very much has been advocating for us to do a hydrogeology study. The engineers agree, and he's going to contact Rocky Mountain Biological Institute about doing that work. And then we could possibly get some money from the Conservation District to do that. So we're not just sitting around talking about projects. We are talking about getting them done.
And the other thing is Crawford's in dire straits with their water system. And so this hydrological study that we're trying to put together it'll encompass Crawford area as well as Paonia area. We're going to try and pull in Delta County as well. And so have the 3 entities on top of Rocky Mountain so that this grant could have a really good chance of being funded.
Yeah. And we were on the phone today we had a progressive meeting today. We started with DOLA and the engineers, then DOLA left, and we just talked to the engineers. Then we talked to SGM engineers, and then we talked to the water engineers. Yes. So it was a long Zoom call. The CDOT grant, I haven't heard anything other than I got a formal letter that we got the grant, which we already knew we got the grant, so I'm not sure about that. The town administrator job description is on the agenda. That I did some revisions and the personnel committee reviewed it. We need that approved so we can take it out to our next advertisement.
I'm sorry, before we get away from the water sewer improvements, do we need a motion to approve these expenditures?
Oh, yeah, it would be great if you want to do that now.
Go for it, Thomas.
Nope.
Make a motion.
Okay, you have a second? Further discussion from the board? All right.
In the purchasing policy.
Okay, anything from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, thank you. That was kind of. All right.
So Mary and I finished up the affordable housing study RFP, and that has been put out on BidNet and on APA Colorado. So BidNet told me they will individually notify 37 firms about that application. So hopefully we're going to get some good proposals. Front office staffing. We were having some fairly significant problems because we just had one person there most of the time, but I think we worked out a solution at this point. Amanda is going to come in on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then we have another person coming in on Fridays. And so Thursday will be the only day that Sam's going to be there by herself. And she said that's kind of a slow day anyway. So for now, I think we can limp along. We'll see how that goes. But it was not fun. As you know, we had to close town hall recently because everybody got sick. They didn't have anybody to work. Just mentioning that I have the home rule handbook. It's really boring, but if you want to be a home community, it's the book to read, and it's all been updated.
Yeah, but we're not.
I think home rule is very boring, but you know, some people like reading that stuff. And then we met with or at least Dave, one of the other water committee people didn't come, about how enterprise accounting is done. And I think we had a good meeting and reached some consensus that we're all on the same page and want to move things forward, which is good news. That's it.
Okay.
What has been happening with the planning grant? You know, we're trying to.
Dana's coming here tomorrow, he said, but today was hedging, I think.
I know he was definitely hedging.
So hopefully he's gonna be here tomorrow. We'll ask him that. Yeah, it wasn't appropriate to make everybody wait while we talked about a planning grant today, but I wondered the same thing because usually you know by now.
I know, it's been 2 months.
I don't know what's going on. I know they have the next 2 energy impact rounds, one's due in March, one's due in June. They have $750 million per cycle to give away. So we're planning to be in
March. So yeah, we need to get that.
Thank you.
All right, next up is finance. Cindy, do you have anything?
I don't.
Okay. Next is police. Matt?
Yeah, I put some handouts, everybody came in, I think a lot of people in the community probably got these. This is the Delta County's new alert system, it's called Delta County Alerts. I would encourage everybody to sign up for that. It's how we notify people of an emergency. Major water line break, we're running out of water. That will help. So trying to get signed up for that. Few other highlights. We worked with Colorado State Patrol and North Fork EMS to get some equipment that Colorado State Patrol is no longer using. And Ryan at North Fork EMS went over to they can pick that up for us. It's a little over $10,000 in equipment. We're going to try and get placed into a few more vehicles. A lot of it's not. A lot of it's for Dodge vehicles and CSP uses. I've kind of talked to Corey a little bit, and I think we're going to be able to make some of that work instead of buying vehicle specific equipment that we need. We should be able to retrofit some of this stuff. We got all of our NIBR stuff entered, which it's kind of our crime statistics that we put in. That hadn't been done for a little while, but it took us a significant amount of time to get our service tech had to get a NIBR's number to even input that info. We are caught up on that, so that's very nice, and we will be doing that monthly now moving forward, so we don't ever get too far behind with that. Any other questions?
Yes.
Question on water. You have wildlife on there a number of times. What kind of wildlife? It's not a party, obviously.
So wildlife issues are going to be any numerous things. A lot of times it will be an injured deer or It could be not that it's injured, but that it's in their backyard, too close for comfort. Something as simple as moving it along, or it's been hit by a car and now it's laying in the front yard. Needs to be disposed of and work with Parks and Wildlife, if they're available to come up and handle that. A lot of times they're very, very busy, and that falls on the road. Sort that out.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot more deer in town than years past, because my generation hung up their rifles and have stopped having. That's allowed them to come in. The deer have turned my compost pile this year, so I don't have to.
Wow. You don't have to trim all the trees in Lee's Park.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, any other questions for Matt? All right, let's move on to Public Works. Corey, anything to add to your report?
No, just kind of want to reiterate the thanks for the town for letting us get the tools and that they've already been a huge help. Guys, sure appreciate them.
Okay, questions for Corey?
I just had one on your last bullet. Working on sanitary improvements as well as any improvements we can make to reduce costs of operation. I just wondered what exactly that meant.
So just continuing like out at wastewater, we're looking at converting, trying to buy more in bulk. Which also creates less exposure for the water and wastewater guys. I think we've already spent quite a bit less converting to that setup at the 2 million gallon plant. So we're looking at if we convert that same type of system out at wastewater, it might even save us more. Mostly chemical type stuff. I'm just trying to save wherever we can, you know.
Thank you. On both accounts.
Okay, anything else? All right. Let's move on then to our public hearing on ordinance 22. I'm sorry.
To make it a 5-minute recess for.
Oh, sure. We have a motion. All right, all in favor?
I 5-minute recess. I brought homemade peanut brittle. My husband makes really good brittle. Come and help yourselves. No, it's just peanuts and sugar.
That's
And butter. And butter. And butter. Like, how much for you? By the way, you're great. Yeah, Shane has it down.
Yeah, because usually when you get.
Yeah, it's so big. Break your teeth. Yeah, this is he. It's Christmas. All different.
Updated it, and signed it, got it set off, this is what we signed. The biggest change is simply that, so, do that in federal law. It's not a,
Committee. Okay, so like we have certain members. After they have like these on. Are you doing anything? Yeah. This is too much. The resolution. It was not done by. It was real motivation there. Tired of. I'm just. What's there's a. That's gonna be. Here. State of the. You know, some weird stuff on it. So,
it was. The old funds. You know. They look at that.
Thing on back in 2002. You're making. Yeah, I was like. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's my act. I mean, I think that was. Idea is. That's. We'll figure fancy new things. It's a week or what? On the other side.
I mean.
Yeah. And so, really well, used that they're talking about stuff.
Yes. Next up on the agenda is our public hearing. All right. I am opening. So we are looking at ordinance 2209, amendment to chapter 18 of the municipal code and adopting the 2018 I codes. Now, we have looked at this in the past. The last meeting, we went over this. And there had been one change to this as requested by our building inspector, Dan Reardon. We took a look at this and he has suggested that we do not accept the upgrades on, oh, Dan, where was it? The gas and
This is it.
yeah, which you explain, please do.
the intent of doing this, the state of Colorado, if we're enforcing codes that they also enforce, we have to enforce equal or more strict than what they do. So in the IBC section 101.4.1, I had suggested, along with other communities, that we have an automatic update every time the state updates the fuel gas code or the plumbing code, that we do the same. And so that way we don't have to do a formal adoption each time. However, with the new state laws that say, as soon as you update your codes, you have to update your energy code. And so we want to avoid that. We're going to adopt the 2018 energy code, and that's a good code to stay in for quite a while. We don't have to do anything, any other adoptions, unless we adopt new codes. So we want to eliminate the automatic adopting of the state codes, because that could be viewed as updating our codes and trigger the automatic adoption. I did see in the ordinance that basically we don't have to amend these sections at all. So on page 60 of your packet, 18-1-30, you'll see item B and item C, and those are written verbatim to what's already in the code. And so what I suggested to everyone, just don't amend the code. There's no point in rewriting the very same thing. So we can just eliminate those two items.
Well, what we did is we had the previous iteration of this, we didn't change it. So I changed it back to what you had suggested we do. So that's why it's in there in this form.
It can't hurt, it's redundant in a way, but it's fine.
Okay.
And so that's the whole reason for that. We were trying to make it easy, so we didn't have to adopt new things to stay up with the state, but it wasn't gonna be good in the long run.
Okay. So it's everything that we reviewed last time, exactly the same, except that we changed back.
Right.
As per Dan's suggestion to those two sections. All right.
And then one other item in there, and Paige pointed this out, in the earlier draft, we've got Title 18, Article 9 to be repealed and then readopted as Title 18, Article 13. In this draft that's in your packet, that didn't make it in there, so it needs to get placed in between. We've got Title 18, Article 8 is replaced and now adopted as Title 18, Article 12. And then you'll see the next entry in the packet, Title 18, Article 10 is repealed. Now it's 18, Article 14. Well, we missed.
It's on page 58. Anybody's trying to.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Get there.
If we're in a different packet, it says 18 to 24, which one of those?
It's actually the second page of the ordinance itself, the 3-page ordinance that will be signed.
Thank you.
Title. All right, repeat again, please. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to get to the same page. So
It's page 2 and 3.
It's the fourth and fifth sentence on page, I'm looking at page 58, page 2 of 3 of the ordinance. 18, which is Article 12 and Article 14.
Thanks.
well, I think, did Nick already change it? Is this?
No, it's there. It's the fourth line down. So if you're at the top of page 2 of 3, which is in the packet, is page 58. You'll see it says title, there's 4 entries of Title 18, and then it goes to Article 8. Then the 5th entry skips to 10, Article 10. And so Title 18 article, the reference to Article 9 was skipped, inadvertently not put in between 8 and 10.
Gotcha.
So it needs to read, there needs to be another one in there that says Article 9.
Mhm.
Yes.
Article 9 needs to be,
And I've got the language right here.
okay, yeah, if you will send that to me, Paige, I will make sure that it gets amended and corrected.
Okay, so it just got inadvertently slipped out.
Probably missed
And
it.
the reason I was confused is I had the other document up, I was looking at it, going, well, it is there, but that's the one you're not.
Right, because it was in the strike and underline, and it's just, yeah, and so. If I might,
Yeah,
that's the only major thing I saw, but I read through it earlier, and there's just a few places where probably when I did my strike and underline, I didn't get the proper reference to the right article within a section. I've got a whole list of just typos,
okay,
or where a strike is still in place or an underline.
Okay.
They were still text
Right.
underlined, the underline needs to be left. Mostly it's a cleanup. And I have this list here, which if you're the cleanup
I'm
person,
going to clean it up.
I will share that with you.
Please do.
Okay,
All right.
and I mean, they're not, it doesn't change the meaning, it's
Right.
just a,
Clean up.
what's that called? What's the word?
Scrivener's,
What is it?
a
is it?
scrivener's error.
Scrivener.
Yes. So I will amend the Scrivener errors and take care of that and make sure that Article 9 gets put in there.
Mayor, on the agenda, this is listed as 622. And on the top of the ordinance, it says 622 and it says 922 at the top of the agenda. And I don't know if that causes us a problem. Ordinance 22-09.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's public, that was the notice, and that may be a problem. I don't know if we can amend that.
Well, we did,
It's just a
right, it's
clarification,
probably a Scrivener error at the end.
not a big deal.
All right, well, we'll make sure it gets the correct ordinance number. Again, all right. Thank you. All right, any other Scrivener errors while we're at it? All right,
What's the title of the 9, so the public knows what we're talking about, because there's actually a verbiage with 9.
where, what?
Oh,
Article 9 reads,
you want to hear that?
yeah, please.
Title 18, Article 9, accessory buildings, structures and uses of the Peonia Municipal Code is hereby repealed in its entirety and readopted as Title 18, Article 13.
Thank you.
All right.
Accessory structures.
Right. Fences and pools and jacuzzis.
Any other questions? From the board? Okay, anything from the public?
Are we just, I actually have some questions.
All right, you have 3 minutes.
No, I don't have questions. I don't have any comments.
Yeah, this is the time for public comments. Please come up and you have 3 minutes.
You didn't hear me. That's like Scrivener stuff. I mean, you just spent a lot of time talking about this, but I downloaded a packet this morning and I went through it. And now I'm seeing you're working from a completely different packet. And you're referring to pages that I have no idea what you're looking at. And I'm really confused at this point because I made some notes and it looks like nothing's jiving anymore.
Hang on, I can get you to the right page. Because I had my notes on the previous version, so I think I can.
Oh, well, there was an updated packet, Suzanne, that was,
At the last minute.
it was at 1:21 this
So
afternoon.
how can you prepare for public hearing when you don't have the most updated thing?
Well,
Please tell me. I want an answer.
unfortunately, our finance officer was unable to put the distributions into the packet until 1:21 this afternoon.
Oh, so all it did was bump
It just bumped things
it
down.
down.
Yeah, so
Okay,
page
so I'm
numbers are being.
jumping between two packets here, trying to figure out.
Trying to find my.
So it's probably page 43 for you as the beginning of the document.
Okay, well, while you're looking, one thing I just want to point out is there's some places here where they're using a small I, as in an iPhone or an iPod, and that's not what's copyrighted with the International Code, that's a capital I, and I know that's been corrected in a few places, but I'm still seeing it. And there's some misnumbering. There's some misnumbering down further. I'll see if I can find it now, but I just was also curious why the duct testing and duct leakage is deleted, because in the code it says, there's in parentheses, it said mandatory in the energy codes. So maybe you've gone over that, but that was something I was kind of curious. It would seem like duct testing for leakage is really important if you're interested in energy efficiency. And hopefully, I mean, you still have your zoning code here mixed in, and hopefully there's something you can take seriously and look into and take it out in the future and put it back where it belongs in the land use, as a land use code, because there's some confusions around that. Oh, chapter 18, article 9. There's some pagination problems there, I guess, as I don't know, I can't find it.
If you're on, you would probably need to look at page 45 of your packet to get to the omission of the article 9.
Okay, I'm on like, okay. Well, I don't know. Hopefully you guys can figure it out. That's kind of lost to me on this one. I'm just. Anyway, yeah, the flood hazard needs to go back into the land use. There's a lot of things here that are land use codes that we got it. Brandon Ken Knight, and I'd like to see them restored one of these days. Thank you. Anyone else?
Would you like me to comment on the duct blasting thing?
On what?
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
We are trying to make this code adoption be friendly to our community. We have no contractors in the area that do duct blasting, so it would be quite an expensive burden on a homeowner to hire someone from who knows where to do that. In addition, the city of Aspen, they had all of that adopted for years, and they had a bunch of contractors that really geared up, spent a lot of money, got trained, bought the equipment. And then the city of Aspen said, gee whiz, our inspections are good, our contractors are good, passing these tests every single time. Let's just eliminate that in our ordinance. And then they had all these contractors get pretty mad because they said, we just spent thousands of dollars for training. So if the inspections are good, the contractors are good, we're gonna perform the way we would expect to in a test. We don't have any contractors in the area to test, and it's just an unnecessary expense.
Thank you. All right. There's no other public comment, then I'm closing the hearing. All right. Deliberation by the board. You can have a motion to accept these as amended with the Scrivener's errors fixed.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-09, amendment to chapter 18 of the municipal code and adopting the 2018 code with as amended and Scrivener errors.
Okay. Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? More discussion.
Sorry, at the ordinance at the beginning of the meeting agenda says 2209.
We'll get it fixed.
It needs to be 2206 is what we're adopting.
We'll
So
get
can we amend that?
We will fit
2206. Motion. I'll amend the motion that we approve of ordinance 2206.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of amending the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now can we have a motion? Yeah.
Question, but because this is the approval process rather than the code itself. So from here on, what does the process look like? Because we have changes that none of us have seen.
Oh, they're just Scrivener errors.
Yeah, but
Well,
I mean.
I can email it to the board
Yeah,
after.
certainly there's nothing substantial, but I mean, the opportunity, since it's ordinance, I think is necessary for us to review it before it be approved. I don't know that we can, might be a next question, if we can, if we can say, okay, we're gonna make these changes that nobody knows what they are, and then once they're finished, we're gonna approve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically, because the board has adopted the ordinance, if this vote adopts the ordinance with the amendment, that amendment would be approved. without further board action. And Scrivener's errors are technically something that you can take care of without further board action, even without a motion, because they're seen as being clerical and non-substantive. So I think one thing that boards will typically do would just be to have those changes made and then just to have that shown to the board in a packet or in the publication, but not necessarily with further board or council action.
Answers my question. Thank you.
All right, any other? All right, all in favor? Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, next up is the executive session. Thomas, would you like to move us into executive session?
On that page now. I move that we go into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24.64024F to discuss a personnel matter involving a potential transition of a current town employee who has not requested that the matter be discussed in open session for the role of town clerk.
Do you have a second? Second discussion?
I just, because Bill Bruder raised the issue, it should be out of executive session. I'd like to have Nick give us his opinion, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in on this. The discussion pertains to an employee of the town currently, and that is a permissible discussion under the open meetings law exception for personnel matters. And it involves the potential shifting of a role into another role. So I do believe it's permissible as an executive session topic.
All right. Discussion being public. All right, all in favor? Opposed? All right, we are in executive session. Thank you very much for Mr. Rarick for your presence.
My pleasure. Thanks for your wisdom on going forward. Thanks for your help. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. But I might just be able to.
Oh, that might be.
Yeah, it's for me to text this.
Oh, you know, I was.
So we'll just we'll have a phone day. It wouldn't take long.
Okay. But. Yeah, if I could do it on the, yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
You can run right over it for that. You can open it up. You can open that can of worms.
We have one package.
Use it back.
They just talk to someone for Friday. How do they do this? Internal. So is this about you? Or is this going under
You know, this for a while.
Oh, I'm not sorry.
Oh, okay.
So Suzanne, that makes sense too.
Yeah,
That's why.
but I mean, this is the asbestos, it's not like they look.
Oh. That is a state law.
Yeah.
But see, even that. But I don't.
That's never.
There's one there. Use energy.
But do people use those? Really, I mean, how much years? I mean, I can think for commercial applications, I can't, I'm not so sure about this.
They're doing it. Not to tell you, there it is. Yeah.
By the way, I was just. That's the. We had an auction, I know they know it wasn't new, but I don't. But earlier, that was completely blocked by political purpose. You know?
I don't think. Really, I don't think. But I know not. All
I saw that.
Don't close that thing. Now, I wish I had me one. And
I'm a bit of a sewer.
you are, is it good? It is the best. It is like, oh, I don't like peanut butter. I can't get enough of this.
Well. So good.
Maybe it should be under my circle house. You just thought.
Well, that was very.
That's just like more. We're all sweet. You know, I'm not writing.
But if they actually.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think that our style works, but I don't. Always stressful. Space. Because I don't think. But. You know what I mean, tell me honestly, but it's interesting. Because it's zoning and all that. Yes, let's see what. And then these are used to be process. Next to the here. Four parts. That was a complete population. Well, now I get it. Anyway, yeah, so.
How do you mark it?
So, you know, that's. It's good. It's just really good. Functions.
Just got that.
Good luck with this.
Okay.
Constant community bonding, that's pretty much.
This is, you know. It's really on any Christmas.
That's a little funny for me.
But it's early.
Or do it on the desk.
Yeah. Hide it in a different way.
Better.
That's.
Yeah.
So cool.
What do you do in town? It works for.
Stelter, trustee Markle, trustee Weber, trustee Smith, trustee Valentine, trustee Knudsen.
Recording progress.
Did I do it on time? Okay, Attorney Cotton Bay. Yeah, interim, interim.
What was that?
Steve Meyer and Mayor Gafford. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. All right, hearing none, we have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we give Leslie the authority to select a clerk from our applicant pool and to provide training for that applicant. And that at the first meeting in February, we appoint a town clerk.
We have a second.
Second.
Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Mark.
My understanding is that it's the authority of the board to appoint the town clerk.
That's what I said.
All right.
We appointed in the first meeting in February.
If the clerk is selected by our administrator, then
And approved by us.
Okay. Anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Watson.
I'd like to know a little bit more about what you're contemplating. You're talking about an applicant pool. Can you tell me more about this? Can you tell me what the applicant pool is? I mean, are they people that have applied to a job application description? Is it the ad that you've had out? I mean, can you just tell us a little bit more? It's not like, I mean,
It is in Ms. Myers.
When did you advertise?
Let's see, it was in, oh gosh, December. November, December, it all blends together.
Yeah.
Right.
It was the end of
Four
the-
applicants. Yep.
okay, so for applicants, so are you talking about, I mean, so are the applicants that meet the requirements of the advertisement? Is that what, so that's the advertisement that was put out there and everything, is that what you're contemplating? It's like, I mean, they're qualified applicants, they meet the terms of the ad. Because you said something about transitioning, so I was kind of wondering about the transitioning. And it sounds like you're talking about a different thing now.
Well, Ms. Guzmeyer this way.
You're saying employee what is the executive session notice say? Can someone read that, please?
A personnel matter involving the potential transition of a current town employee.
And how does that deal with the applicant or applicants?
These are personnel issues that we don't really talk about in public. I appreciate your interest, but this isn't something that we normally talk about in public.
Okay, I just was wondering, I mean, you're talking about 4 applicants and now, but the announcement, the topic of the executive session was the transition. That's lots of things out.
Well, we are not going to talk about what we talked about in executive.
But are you looking at the job qualifications for of the application? I mean, of the job,
We did look at that, yes.
and are they being tossed?
No.
You know, again, this is a personnel issue. And
so
No, it's not personal. I'm not asking about employees. I'm asking about the process here. I'm asking, you had an ad that was put out and I'm wondering how closely you're trying to stick to the terms of the advertisement.
And it is one of those things that none of the applicants are public information.
Yeah, I'm not
Period.
asking about applicants. I'm just asking if you're trying to stick to the terms, the parameters that you set.
I don't know what was in the ad, so I don't know specifically, but we are definitely trying to hire those
Your 3
qualified.
minutes are up. Okay, good. So you're saying that it doesn't really have to do with, it's just as an administrator, you're looking to.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes. So why don't we go ahead and do the resolution 2301 because it's just public posting. So can we get a motion to approve resolution?
Make a motion to approve resolution 01-2023.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All right, anything from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, next up is Western Slope Conservation Center letter of support. Ben, you're finally up.
Designated holiday.
That's next. Yeah, it's later down. We're just doing we're following the agenda.
Well, no, we jumped designated.
Yes.
Where's designated holiday?
Oh, you have an old.
I have an agenda. Oh, good God.
You should do that one first. Okay.
No, let's do the designated holiday. We're gonna bring that holiday. Stay. You want to designate our holidays now?
I guess I first want to say, in reference to the town springs, because I know Western Slope Conservation Center was brought up as well. If that's something you want to discuss with us, I think we'd be willing to organize volunteers to do that. So
Put me on the list.
yeah, so that's. But hello, my name is Ben Cass. I'm the public lands program director at the Western Slope Conservation Center. We're at Fort Poplar. I'm here today. I'll try and be quick. Get a letter of support from the town of Paonia supporting the Thompson Divide mineral withdrawal. Included in the packet that I sent to you is the first is a letter that I drafted that I would like the town to adopt and sign. The second is a map of the actual withdrawal area. And then the third, let's see, I had the town support letter for the CORE Act, which is related, and I can go into that in a minute. And then I also have the letter from the city of Blue Springs. And you'll see it's not signed at the bottom, but that's just because it's also going through its own process. It's already been approved by those two municipalities. So the Thompson Divide mineral withdrawal originally began as part of the Colorado Outdoor Recreation and Economy Act. There's a history before that, but we don't necessarily need to get into it. It began from a coalition of groups of ranchers, farmers, people who utilize the Thompson Divide area and impacted people to get some protection from oil and gas in that area. It was included in 2019 in the Colorado Outdoor Recreation and Economy Act, or CORE Act, introduced by Senator Michael Bennett. That piece of legislation actually had 4 different pieces of legislation, kind of all combined. The Thompson Divide piece being one of those pieces, and so you'll see in that letter from the county we got back in 2019 that was already something town supported as part of the CORE Act. More recently, on October 12th, when President Biden announced the Camp Hale National Monument, he also instructed the Bureau of Land Management and the U.S. Forest Service to start this administrative withdrawal process, in which those agencies would administratively remove would administratively withdraw the area from oil and gas, new oil and gas leases for 20 years. So it's different than legislation. Legislation would be permanent. This would be administrative or temporary, but again, 20 years is quite a long time. And so again, it's related, but a little different. So where we're at now is the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service have put a notice in the public in the Federal Register and began this comment period, starting this administrative withdrawal process. This process will go on probably for a year or two. There's going to be a whole NEPA process that happens for both of those agencies, in which they're kind of determining different potential pathways for this to happen or not happen, assessing all the environmental analyses and economic impacts and things like that. And I can go into, what exactly this potential result is, if that's helpful. But it's really just what I'm asking the town is to kind of write a very similar support letter to the one that was already passed in 2019 for this Thompson environmental withdrawal. And happy to answer questions if there are any.
Okay, questions from the board? Yeah.
I just had a question, and I think you answered it. The letter coming from Glenwood and should be January 5th, 2023. It says 2022, but reading it, I was kind of like, wait a minute, past or present? So, that explains that. Okay, thank you.
Sure, yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious about millions of people, because Ken Knight wrote millions of people, and I'm not sure. I don't think millions of people visit. I hope millions of people are listening. I'd like that changed.
I don't think we have that in the draft.
Yeah.
The draft letter has millions of people in the last paragraph.
Oh, let's see, yes.
Yeah, so let's make it.
It's about 1,000 maybe.
Millions of people visit the western slope of Colorado each year. True. We can go to national park. I think there's something like 30,000 on 70 every day.
Well, and to prove the western slope of Colorado includes Mesa Verde National Park, and they absolutely have millions of people visiting Mesa Verde National Park.
People on I-70 go through us too.
Is that, is it,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the letter of support. This is something we've done before.
Oh, yeah.
It's good.
Right. Yeah. All right, further discussion from the board? Okay, from the public? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Thank you, Ben. Now we'll go back to designated holidays.
Now what page is that? I just messed myself up. Are you on?
Paige is asking what page?
On page is asking what? Yes, page.
99.
It's right before the conservation letter.
I know, and I hit 112.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
All right, can we get a motion on the designated holidays?
Make a motion to approve resolution 02-2023.
Can I get a second?
Okay.
All right, discussion from the board?
Can we just change this so that we have federal holidays in our policy so that we don't have to? Back when I wrote the draft manual, back when the dinosaurs roamed this town, there was.
Don't forget the data.
Yeah, that's true. We did put federal holidays in there. Somehow they've now been broken out into individual dates and partially all manuals. That the way it is.
No.
It isn't.
Not specific, you mean like day of the?
Oh, like it would say 4th of July, Labor Day.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yes, because I have it in front of me, personnel handbook.
All right, okay.
I just,
And they do say the days when the day doesn't change. It's in the personnel handbook,
for this.
like December, Christmas, December.
Like point out, July 4th, it's not listed as the holidays. In this ordinance.
It is not.
That's a very good point. That's charity days. We're not going to honor them.
Yes.
Everybody's going to work on charity days.
So we need to have charity days.
You amend the motion. Resolution.
Yeah, I'll make an amendment that we change resolution 02-2023 and add July 4th as a legal holiday where the office of the town will be closed.
I'd like to second that very good amendment.
Okay. We have a discussion on that.
Oh, not on that, I would.
Okay, all in favor of?
It's not going to be fast. There are 12 designated.
All right, well, we're just adding July 4th.
I just want to make sure you know that because we have Christmas Eve, we have Christmas.
Yeah, but we're just discussing the adding July 4th, Dave. All in favor of adding July? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that, now, go back.
Just so you know.
There are 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9.
So you're missing, well, if I could do what Dave is looking at the handbook, which is what I did in my response to Leslie's inquiry about adding 2 days. I looked at the handbook. The handbook gives half a day on New Year's Eve, which is not listed here. And it also provides a half a day on Christmas Eve.
So those are not paid times. Those are times that we close the town hall, but the employees have to take their own vacation time.
I don't think the handbook, does the
No,
handbook say
it's
that?
paid holiday time off for all regular full-time employees on the holidays listed.
But
That's not what they've been doing.
Yeah, well, they should correct it then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
We've got a lot of things that need to be
Yeah,
corrected.
so-
So personnel handbook and then the municipal code, a lot.
Some of the vacation time that employees have to take for Christmas Eve and New Year should be reinstated.
okay, but this is just saying what the adopted holidays are, not what the paid holidays are, is what this resolution
Yeah,
is.
that's fine.
but that, I think that, to me, that's gotta be a distinction. It's gotta say whether they get paid time off. Because otherwise, we have this conundrum. If you don't wanna pay them for it, I don't care how many you have. But if you're gonna give them paid time off for 2 more days.
And that was my,
And the other thing I added in my email to Leslie was how much time people were given extra for this New Year's and Thanksgiving week. Now, and I'm assuming it was paid. So let me just reiterate, let me ask the question. So Thanksgiving week, the office would close at 12:30 on Friday. Was that unpaid? So people have to take vacation for that 4 hours?
Gives, like, what is it, 4 hours for Christmas Eve and 4 hours for New Year's Eve.
Right.
So for the balance of the day, since the offices were closed, we used our own personal time for that other 4 hours of that 8-hour day.
At Thanksgiving. Right, so your Thanksgiving, it was, so the reason I'm bringing this up is because there comes. Because there were an extra 12 hours of time taken off this Thanksgiving and Christmas over and above the personnel handbook. Now, whether it was paid or not paid, I do not know.
So the town's holiday on New Year's is a half day on
New Year's Eve,
New Year's Eve and a full day for New Year's Day.
paid,
Okay.
that's what's in the handbook.
I misunderstood, sorry.
We had, the office was closed Friday and Monday. So we had used 4 hours of PTO and got paid for the other 4 and 8 hours on Monday for the
Right, okay. So with that in mind, what is in the personnel handbook, which you followed in terms of paid, is that there's an equivalent of 11 8-hour paid holidays provided to employees right now, according to that. And so that's given. What the trustees approved November 22nd was, see if people had to take their own PTO for the extra time that they got for New Year's Eve. So here's my point. With what was given by the trustees and these already 11 paid holidays, it ended up in my math that people had another 11, 12 and a half days of paid leave based on the trustees' November 22nd vote to give extra time. But you're saying that extra time over and above the personnel handbook was not paid for. People took PTO.
Correct.
Okay, so now going back, right now we give 11 8 hours of paid holiday, according to the personnel handbook. And this is proposing to add 2 more, 16 more hours of paid holiday.
and that's not what I understood, is that the office would be closed for those days and that if the employees decided to take those days off, they could. If they wanted to come in and the office was closed, then they could come in and work those days
And not have to use it.
and not have to use their vacation days.
But
But
that's
it
not
would
what
give
this
them
said.
time. No, that's not what it says. It does not say that they would get paid time off.
Resolution simply for closing the office.
That's all it does.
But-
So we're kind of getting dragged off again into.
Well, no, I think it's, one thing is, if you're gonna have this office is closed, I don't, does the personnel handbook say the office is closed? Well, I'm concerned, I don't want to see 2 more paid holidays given. That's
We're
my
not doing
Scrooge.
that.
I
We're
know,
not doing
that's
that.
my Scrooge effect, but this is not clear. Just because the office is closed, how's the average person gonna know that that means?
What does the personnel handbook say?
It says we have 11 paid holidays.
Right, 11 paid holidays, but does it
We're
make
not
it?
changing the personnel.
No, I want to know in the personnel handbook, what does it say about the office being closed? Is there any reference to the office being closed? So that it's discretionary? So I think what's going on is you have paid holidays and you have the office being closed. And I think you
Two
need,
different things.
you need to make it clear in this, what it means. Because you're telling me the town of Paonia will observe the following adopted holidays and offices will be closed.
Yeah,
But why don't you say, and people will get their time paid for? And then the next one, and the town will designate the following holidays as recognized holidays. Town office is closed. Your tables have the
There's
same.
nothing in the personnel manual. This is being closed.
Okay, but this resolution is not making a distinction about who gets paid when. You have the same entry for both, and I don't think that's a good resolution. That tells me nothing. Are people gonna get paid for June 19th or not? This doesn't say. It doesn't say either way.
What does the personnel handbook say?
Yeah.
It says paid
yeah, but
for these holidays.
I have a potential solution if you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I do understand Paige's concern and I understand that the resolution wasn't intended to affect the amount of paid holidays given to employees as established in the handbook. So what if there were a motion to add a statement to the resolution to that effect? Perhaps nothing herein shall affect the amount of paid holidays provided to town employees as set forth in the town's personnel handbook.
Perfect.
perfect.
Yep.
Would you send that in an email so that we can make sure we get it in the resolution correctly?
So the one I wanted to bring up, or question I want to ask Nick is, Matt, the police chief's concern is that he was the one who brought to me the need to take Indigenous Peoples' Day as well as Juneteenth off. Because of the public relations, interest that the law enforcement has. So would that mean that that those would be holidays that people would get paid? Or are you saying they would just get paid for 11 holidays and they get to choose which ones it would be?
Am I saying that? I was just saying that this resolution, we could write, there could be a statement that just shows that it doesn't have any effect on the paid holidays offered to employees as established under the personnel guidelines. So it wouldn't have any impact by recognizing Juneteenth and Columbus/Indigenous Peoples Day on any amount of or any employee benefits or pay. So it would just be that the office is closed, but it's employees are still, I guess, expected to work on those days, or they have to use PTO as you guys have talked about.
I'm trying to work through this as an implementation issue.
Cindy?
So, the reason that Matt even brought this up is when he was going through Lexipol, they're the ones that brought it up, and they're concerned on how it looks to the public if we are not following the national holidays and respecting the national holidays. So that is why it was brought up is because Lexipol brought it up in how it looks to the public that the police department isn't, we follow all the other federal holidays, but we're not following those two federal holidays. So they strongly encouraged him to get the board to review that issue because of perception.
But, yes, go ahead.
If
But-
they
but-
did your objection, you make a motion.
Well, wait a minute, I'm not ready to make a motion because first we have new language from Nick, which I think will help. But here's my question on distinction. Do these need to be paid holidays to have the same effect of acknowledging both of these national holidays?
But that is.
Paid holidays.
Yes.
Is it,
And they are intended to be paid holidays.
so that's the
They are
question.
federal holidays, so they would be paid federal holidays.
And that's not what this resolution is saying.
There would have to be another resolution to do that, I think.
Yeah, my concern is how you implement this.
Yeah.
So, will you tell that, because there's already been confusion about holidays and what's paid and what's not. I'm trying to figure out how to clarify all this stuff.
Yes.
Thomas, where are we with our motions?
At this point, we are just adding July 4th.
Still discussing July 4th.
Right, so we have a motion to accept this with the addition of July 4th. That's where we're at.
I move to amend the amendment and also include Washington's birthday, third Monday in February. It is also a federal.
Yeah, we've got a lot of federal holidays that are not included in this.
No, President, that's the only one.
President's Day.
They're gonna stay consolidated. We could-
Yeah.
So make months.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I'm reading the Commerce Department's website right now. Says we have New Year's Day, MLK, Washington's birthday, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, Christmas, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Well,
They're behind.
Yeah.
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 We are allowing 11 full paid days of holidays in a year, right?
Yep.
Why don't we have the employees come back to us on which days they want us to recognize? Because I don't think we should be adding to like get to 13, but this is a very valid thing to be recognizing both Indigenous Peoples' Day and to be recognizing Juneteenth. I think that's really important. Those recommendations are important. So why don't the employees come back to us with a staff recommendation on which 11 days should be paid? They could be messing around with a list and then we can revise the personnel manual accordingly. And there's not two different things out there about holidays. Holidays should only be in the personnel manual.
You're right.
There's 11 holidays here.
Yeah, there's 11. So the employees, we would like to see you incorporate these two, figure it out.
Here's what's going on. There are 11 8-hour days of paid holidays,
Yes.
but that includes New Year's Eve, 4 hours, Christmas Eve, 4 hours. You can't count them as these. So,
They can trade them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 bulleted items listed in the handbook, but only 10 of those are 8-hour days.
11 8-hour.
Yeah, but when you add it up, so what you're suggesting is that we add another 16 hours of paid leave.
No.
No, well, I mean, that's what Lexipol is saying, they should be recognized paid holidays. So that would be, we would have 11, 12, 13, and essentially it would be another 12 hour, another 16 hours of paid. So I kind of like.
I'm afraid we're gonna be here all night with this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna suggest, like Dave suggested, that I talk to the staff about how they would like to work this and come back with you with a staff proposal and you can chew on that.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this.
But I think you still want to make these holidays.
Because we're not talking about pay in this resolution at all. You've wandered off to talk.
So we can.
And we need another resolution or a modification to the personnel manual to deal with the whole pay.
And that part of the administrative.
Somewhere else.
That's
Okay,
not something.
so then we need to add Nick's statement about not being paid holidays.
It doesn't, no, it's,
Academic.
yes, and this doesn't speak to payment at all.
Close the
I move to call the question.
holidays and.
I move to call the question.
Okay, if we have to vote on calling the question,
Unless we don't want to.
we have to vote on calling.
So I second.
I need a move when you
You
don't.
don't second it, you just have to vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling the question? All right, all in favor of the motion of the motion?
The amendment.
And the amendment.
Amendment.
No, July 4th.
Yeah, well, no, we already voted on the July 4th. All in favor of the amended motion, Opposed, nay? Okay.
Okay, what page are we on?
Administrator contract.
That sounds good. It's 121.
Hey,
Oh, wait a minute, did we skip? Oh, duh, sorry. Too many administrators.
I'm working without a contract right now.
yeah, so we have to backdate this to the second.
Keep that going, she's free.
Don't discourage her.
So I make a motion, we accept the amendment to the interim administrator independent contractor agreement.
And extension, right?
It's the extent.
And it's the extension. I second that.
Discussion from the board.
It looks good because it's a specific term that we can extend as needed. And I like that. That's what I was looking for. And so there's no changes in pay or anything else. All those things stay the same. The hours have gone up. Right, 24
Right, which is needed. Yes, Tom.
Leslie, how many hours are you working on now, I think?
Oh, it just depends on the week.
Lots.
I worked over 30, I worked under 30 before the holidays, just because it was the holidays and I was transitioning. But, yeah. Probably 30 is my guess.
Anything else from the board? All right, anything from the public? All right, do you have a motion on the table?
Yeah, we do.
All right,
Paige made the motion, I seconded.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next. Discussion and approval of the town administrator job description.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the modified town administrator job description.
I'll second that.
All right, discussion from the board. All right, anything from the, yes, sorry.
I have a question on the very first page and it is, do we have 22 full-time employees? I'm not sure that.
That's what I've been told.
Okay, so it still is good. I was a little not sure about it.
Nobody's gonna come afterwards and say that you gave them false information, they took the job on that.
Okay. All right, discussion from the board.
We don't know how many full-time employees we have.
Well, I think there are some, I think there are open.
It depends on how we count them, because we have part-time employees in the public works department, so. I mean, we could go through and get an exact count if you want.
That's.
And it fluctuates. depending on how many open
know.
positions.
For a job description, let's get in the ballpark, that's how we're looking.
Right.
You're trying to give the candidates an idea of how many people that they're gonna be responsible.
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah, it's in,
How many?
We have
Five.
23 total employees. 7 of those are trustees, one's a judge, and one's part-time.
What?
There's
23.
23 employees.
So 12.
Well, there's 24 now because I have a new employee, but they just started. 23 employees. 7 of those are the trustees, 1 is the judge, and one is part-time.
So what's that add up to? 13 full-time employees?
Yep. 13 non-judge, non-trustee employees.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
14.
So you get closer, I could get this.
All right,
It changes daily. It's hard to keep track.
but that's
Generally speaking, you don't count trustees on it.
Right, exactly.
I know, but they're on the payroll register and it counts them, so.
Yeah, okay.
John and I did it. I wasn't counting.
All right. We have a motion in a second to approve the town administrator job description. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Yeah, we
There's a couple things in here we should look at. Lord, hang on.
Hiring was one, right?
Yes. So
Next thing, hiring plan.
here's the other thing, I'm all for I think it's I didn't vote, but I think there's some things in here that we need to be aware of for further addressing, and I think we need a CRS reference in this.
I don't know why you've referenced CRS. Nobody references those.
in a job description.
Well, it says subject to the provisions of CRS.
I know you had that in your code. I just.
You had, okay, but can we take that out?
Yeah.
This
No,
is-
it was what I got, and I thought, what is that? I thought it was important to you, so I left it in.
Yes.
Sorry. Do we stick to procedure here? This is getting
Okay,
very.
yeah,
informal. And I don't mean to quash the conversation, but let's just keep it so that one person is speaking at a time.
Okay.
Everybody speaking in turn.
Yes, so then the other thing is if you go onto page 112, my second comment. It says yellow highlighted text here below refers to personnel policy and personnel policies and procedures. If such policies and procedures exist for the town of Paonia, and this has to do with, we do not have a clear established subject of approval, personnel rules and regulations. I don't know what those really are. And this is language that you had, Leslie, about personnel rules and regulations. We only have a personnel handbook. But one of the outstanding issues that Leslie pointed out is we don't have anywhere where the administrator has any ability to hire anybody in any of our ordinance or code or the personnel handbook. Is that right?
Yeah, so the way I would describe it, and we're not going to solve it before you hire your next administrator, and I think we're going to talk a lot about this on the 30th. There's no clear chain of command. And it's a problem. And that's one of the reasons why we want to talk about, roles and responsibilities on the 30th, because in some respects, the code and the personnel manual give everything to the town administrator. Everything. And that you don't want to, and it doesn't really recognize that you've got department heads that are supervising their employees, and they should have some authority over their employees. So the point that I brought up is I made those general statements, but we need to work on the personnel policies so that they're clear and concise and everybody's agreed on what the chain of authority is. Because that, to me, and I think Nick's noticed too, is the biggest issue we've seen in your code, your personnel policy, and just the confusion around who's on first. And I think people have tried to fill that vacuum by making decisions so you could move forward, and they've gotten in trouble.
So again, this is a discussion for another time.
Thank you, but I wanted you all to be aware of this, because if you hadn't read it, because I will get with Leslie and John to modify this text in here, because I think we're referring to things that don't exist. So if we can, I don't know if it matters in the job description.
Personnel policies and, and regulations and policies, those are general words. You don't have to have a document that's called that. It just means that you're responsible for enforcing the personnel rules and policies.
Okay, even though we don't have any.
You have them, but I'm saying they need work.
Yeah. Okay,
work.
All right, but I just thought, I don't know if anybody read it, but I want to make sure you understand. We
read our.
Okay, but I wanted to be, I didn't want to just gloss over all of this, because this is really serious.
Part of the problem here is that we're micromanaging everything on everything, and we never get anything done. We're trying to pass this policy, this job description.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. We don't need to parse it to the last period, T crossing, I dotted.
Okay, but Rick, you're asking this to go out. First of all, this is a really long job description. Are you all okay with that?
Yes,
Yes,
we read it.
Okay, but the other one was said to be too long. So I want to make sure this is probably going to be longer than the other.
No, it's shorter than the other one.
Oh, I don't think so, but
There's a lot crossed out.
well, at the end, but I mean, the content, the meat of this is pretty meaty and you're all good with it.
Obviously, we just passed.
Okay, well, thank you, but John and I have been doing all of this and I'm happy to give it up. But I want to make sure everybody's honestly on board and not just in a hurry because it's 9:16.
We
Okay,
want you to give it up.
yeah,
We want you to give it up.
okay.
And what you're doing right now is not giving it up.
Okay, okay, thank you.
All right. All right, next up is discussion of plan for hiring town administrator. What is the plan right now?
So I just wanted to go over the proposal. I redid the brochure and with a really different focus, which is to only use it as the enticement to get people to go to the website and look at the job description and apply. We were using the brochure as the job description. That's not normally how a brochure is used. They go hand in hand. You have a brochure and you have a job description. You don't have to repeat that. And then, you know, this whole philosophy, I think we all know that unfortunately Paonia has had a reputation for political strife and personal attacks and all those things that you guys have all experienced. The problem is everybody else knows outside it here. And professional managers go and they look at the YouTube videos of your meetings, they look at your minutes. They're very concerned when staff people are attacked or thrown under the bus. These things really, I understand that it's been part of the culture to make those kinds of specific comments, but they are hurting you from having people come in. And I thought long and hard about this, about how do we turn this around so you can get some good candidates, because this is a wonderful community. And I think that you guys are starting, you know, you're really starting to move forward. You've got a really smart council. And I think we're going to talk about some of the ways that we could get past dwelling on the past on the 30th. But I think one of the ways to do it is to say, we've had a lot of political strife. We're trying to turn that around. Come help us. Because what managers are attracted to, they want to make a difference. That's why we get in this job. We don't get in this job because we get attacked personally, politically, because we do. And I mean, it's a tough job. 40% of us in Colorado, the last I heard, we get fired every year for political reasons. And I think you just own it. You just say, look, it's been tough here, but we're trying to turn it around. Come help us. And I think that will be more attractive. And I also think you want to show off your wonderful people, because you've got really wonderful people and you've got all this creative stuff going on. So that's kind of, and then I put it on brand because I've been watching your graphics and your color scheme and your signs and stuff. So that's what I just was suggesting. You don't have to accept that. I'm more than willing to work with that personnel committee to finalize that. But I'm suggesting you take a whole different tactic and try to appeal to, this is a great community. We're in transition. Come help us out.
I think that was really well put. I think that hit the nail on the head about why we're not getting candidates. And that's been reinforced in the circles that I've been asking people, why are we not getting candidates, especially with the clerk job? I think we do too much of a dive, as Trustee Stelter has reminded us, into the actual micromanaging of this. we have an opportunity as a board to actually let go of this stuff and have a professional run this as it should be run. Okay, so the professional is suggesting a recruiting tactic that I think is really good. And we don't have to do a deep dive on figuring it out. I like the recruiting tactic. I'd like to see it go. So I make a motion that we approve the hiring process that has been presented to us.
You got a second?
Second.
More discussion from the board?
I
We
love
also
this.
have-
Oh,
Sorry, we also have gold medal fishing.
I'll add that on. There's time for revisions.
I love it, but I am not keen on this graphic.
I wonder.
Yeah.
That's like you gave it to you.
The babes.
But everything else, if there's another nice graphic,
I'll find another one.
but no, well. It's cute, but I don't know.
No, not the babes.
No, but it made me laugh out loud
I
when I
spent
saw the
a
beginning.
lot of time going over town Facebook pages, stuff, collecting
Yeah.
photos.
Yeah. No, I love it. I honestly think it's a good thing. I just think that graphic.
You know, there's another cute one. There's a bunch of kids at a festival.
Oh,
And they have the sweetest little faces. I might use them.
Yeah.
If we're getting stuff from Facebook, we're sure we have permission to use it. And regarding the acknowledgement of town dysfunction, I think that's very, it's a good move. I think it's pretty universally understood that we have issues. I think that having a plan to deal with them in place might be helpful. But I have also heard from other people that they don't want to either work for town or participate in town events because of what they see on YouTube. So if we have a plan beyond just saying, help us, save us, to actually improve ourselves and our meetings, that may,
That's what we're talking about on the 30th.
that I think that will go much farther than what one person can do.
Okay, thank you. Yes, discussion.
So I'm wondering, Leslie, you're with us for 6 more months, is that right?
Well, less than that.
Less than that. And then what if you continue for another 6 months? Is that like?
I'm really old and I can't take political strife anymore. Get out while I'm in the honeymoon phase.
Just a consideration.
The joke would be if we get rid of all this political strife, would you stay long?
It's gone. Leave the road.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's go forward. So next up is discussion of staff plan for addressing water sewer repair improvement and funding issues.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting 15 minutes.
Oh, very good, Dave. Thank you. You have a second on that?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I
Okay,
abstain.
Yep. Okay, water sewer improvement funding issues. Did we, that was earlier.
It seems really clear.
Yep.
We approved that. didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. See if you have any questions and I'm very happy that Dave has joined the committee on Tuesdays because I will tell you that we're taking a deep dive and we're figuring out exactly what we need to do, which isn't always clear. Our next meeting, we're going to be talking about the clock plant and the history of it. And that's kind of the discussion that we get stuck on. What do we do with the clock plant?
Mhm.
Do we spend the money to put it into operation for years to come when it's not really compliant right now? Or do we make it a raw treatment or raw water storage facility and put in another tank? So we're working all that out, but the engineers, we're gonna focus on that talk next Tuesday and I'll report back. I'm trying to send you when anything happens that's important, an email, so you're moving along with us because I think, I'm really excited. You've got a great staff on the water and sewer issues. I mean, Jeremiah and Jordan are amazing. I can't say enough.
Just like to point out that if we're gonna recoat the upper Lamborn tank, we have to have the clock water plant in service.
Yeah, so we are gonna spend money to get it in service just for that. What we're trying to figure out is, and then do we keep it? Because if we keep it after that, we've got to do a lot of money.
I know.
So it's-
Idea that came up today was to put a 1 million gallon tank where the 500,000 was and then hire that 1 million that's out of date and use it for raw water storage for like fire emergencies and stuff like that.
But we don't have a system where we can dump raw water into our drinking water system.
No, it wouldn't go into the drinking water.
It's super
I mean,
complex.
yeah. Anyways,
I agree, it is complex.
It's
That's
a
why
very complex.
we're spending it Tuesday afternoons. We've got scheduled for this only, and we bring in the engineers and then whatever we need when we need it. Right.
one thing is, we definitely we've never seen this before in this town. We have a coherent plan and we're moving forward on it. And so the details we're working out as we go, but you already approved the emergency stuff that we have to do now. And we're starting to look more long range.
I like seeing long range planning. It's really nice. Better than we're fixing the leaks this week.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
We're really looking at long.
It's been that way for many, many decades.
Okay, so next thing on the agenda is the receipt of the JDS Hydro report. And so this is something that was funded by DOLA. And it has some really good stuff in it. And there's really no action we need to take on this, just it's there. And this is all also going into everything that we're looking at as well. And DOLA has talked to, JDS has talked to us about it in our Tuesday meetings.
Yeah.
And it's part of our discussion as well.
And the one thing the comment that I'll make about that is that I stopped breathing when I read the part about that you didn't have IGA government agreements with all your water companies. Oh, geez. So, yeah, so that is something that I'm gonna, my next task that I promised Nick a month ago is the timeline for the moratorium and what our progress. So the next task, I am gonna be looking into that because that's serious, that's important.
Yes.
The water companies do have agreements of some kind. It's not.
There's 6 of them.
Yeah. Okay. They're only September.
Yes.
Whatever. There are some agreements in place. But having those formalized would be. I feel like I have more than 6, but whatever. Yeah. Whatever.
Yes.
A couple of comments on the report. One is the idea of annexing anything in Delta County is dead. And that'll never happen. But I think IGAs are absolutely essential, and that part of the report is good. Because that way we can kind of lock down some requirements for the companies. Right now, it's Wild West out there for the water companies. The other thing that was kind of strange in that, it said that if we have an IGA, the people in the water company wouldn't have to pay tap fees. That wasn't clear to me at all what they were talking about. We're still going to maintain the fact that somebody in a water company that wants to put a house in has to pay on your tap. Otherwise, we have no control over the water. The other thing in there is they mentioned we need to do something about raw water. Back in 2002, we put in the water ordinance that anybody that comes to the town wanting more than 150,000 gallons a month can be required by the board to provide raw water equivalent to what they use. And when Riverbank went in, we stipulated that they turn over the shares they had in the farmers in the Feldman ditch to the town in exchange for the water requirements for that subdivision. Although they're on the other side of the river, the farmers ditch water is strong water. It's really, it'd be nice to have all that. Of course, when 2008 caused a real estate collapse, that project died. But if we ever revive that project, or if we have any other larger subdivision projects like that, we need to claim raw water. Whether we can use it now or not, we still need to have a hold of that. I think that's important. The other thing in the report that's kind of bogus is putting wells in. Wells don't fly here. Ones that are shallow in Manco Shell are contaminated with selenium, arsenic, and calcium sulfate. And the ones that are deep just don't produce enough to actually be functional for the radioactive.
I brought that up with JDS. I thought that was pie in the sky, that whole
Yeah.
well discussion. I said, who's selling a high yield deep well in this valley?
Right.
Yeah, nobody.
All right, Thomas.
So this report and a lot of the stuff we've been talking about seems kind of predicated on the presumption that Paonia is going to be growing bigger. And my understanding of the moratorium and the resolution of it was that we were to determine what we can serve. So I think that while this is good information and a lot of what we're working on is critical for the health and safety of all of us, what we should be focusing on is growing our water system, specifically in town in general, stronger rather than bigger with this information.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? All right, let's move on to the approval of the SGM master contract. Can I get a motion on that?
I'd like to move that we approve the SGM master contract.
Have a second.
Second.
Discussion from the board? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the SGM master contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next is the dissolution of the advisory water committee. Yeah.
Last time.
Oh, no, we are.
So I'd like to make a motion to, this has to be done by ordinance before I do this motion. You know, that was enacted by ordinance, so you have to bring it back and dissolve it by ordinance. So I'd like to make a motion to put on the next agenda, ordinance dissolving ordinance 2020-09. Let me explain what's going on here. The advisory water committee was a temporary stopgap before the standard water committees got in action. And the actual language in that ordinance was far too restricted for what we're doing now. We're not getting rid of the Wednesday meetings at the end of the month, right? They've just been transformed. Instead of being these rather formal, narrow meetings, what we've done is expand it. We're inviting more of the public in. I want to draw the public in on the water so they feel like they have some ownership in the type of work we're doing and that we're giving them good communication about what we're doing. And that seems to be working pretty good. I've got Kayla has provided Mary with the LEAP stuff, and which has to do with the fact that we give a discount to people that are lower income on their water. So will be public stuff going out on that. This is an example of, and there's also been a font for ideas. I've gotten some really good ideas out of the citizenship that I'm not getting out of this board with respect to water. It's just more minds, more ideas. So it's not really a dissolution and no more water committee, advisory committee. It's a transformation into being a more public thing that meets once a month. But the ordinance is holding us in. We can't change the days that we have it. So if, like, the public can't make it, we can't change the time of day we have it. All these things are locked into the ordinance. It gives us no control whatsoever of the meetings. So that's the purpose of this.
So we'll put that on the next agenda?
Right.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second the motion. Yeah, for my time on the advisory water committee, really was not time well spent in general.
Well spent.
I think that the intent was to bring in users from out of town, specifically to give people a voice and to take load off of the board. At the time, there was, as there were no committees, every water issue that was to be discussed came to regular meetings. And so it was a huge burden. And my understanding is that was sort of the impetus for creating that. With the way that this has been functioning, as well as our new staff. I think that it makes sense that as long as we have a venue and a forum for the public to be heard, specific water issues, I don't see any problem with the zoning ordinance that creates it.
I think that the Water Advisory Committee originally was really useful because Phil Seriani was so skilled that he was mentoring Jeremiah and Jordan in it. And so I was really happy for work that he did.
Anything else? Yeah. I just want to point out that there was a purpose of the committee incorporated into the ordinance. And there are 4 prescriptive things in there, and we don't have to talk about them now. They could be part of the agenda. But mostly, I just want to point out that the committee was assigned certain things to do. And I just wonder, are those now moot? You know, are we going to, was this, I always kind of looked at this as a bone was being thrown to the citizens. So, but there are 4 things that were a purpose. So I just think everybody should be aware of that. And if it's dissolved, do these purposes go away, and will we get at them through staff, et cetera?
Yes, listen.
We're having the roles and responsibilities meeting on the 30th, and we do want to talk about the committees and the extent of their role.
That was going to be my other thing too, because we're now relying on a 2-person committee to keep the ball rolling on this, if I understand that correctly.
Correct.
Right. And so that's again why I want to bring up that we put in, we codified 4 things that the AWC was supposed to do. Again, I don't know if they're doable. I don't know if they're reasonable, but I thought we do need to know our roles and responsibilities. So maybe putting this on the next agenda, dissolving it's getting the cart before the horse. We should wait till after the 30th. That would be my suggestion.
Well, at this point, there's about 12 people that are attending those meetings. So we've expanded it. By doing that, I'm actually violating that ordinance. I think that's what bothers me at some level. That I'm not following that formal ordinance.
Are you saying that because you don't have the membership on the committee?
We don't have, we have no in-town member, which is required by the ordinance. And we've already in December, because of the date would have conflicted with the holidays, moved it into a different date and a different time. So we're violating the ordinance there. I mean, these are trivial things, but hey, law is important. So.
Yes, Leslie.
So I just wanted to mention, I don't think that, what Dave wants to do is in conflict of the meeting on the 30th, because committees are more of a policy than a code requirement. So what he's saying is, let's take out these code requirements that don't fit. And then on the 30th, we're going to be talking about what do we want, what is the role of committees and what do you want them to do? And you can do whatever you want. I realize we were really kind of talking a lot about this.
All we're saying is create an ordinance. I think that's basically what we're voting. Let's make it all.
No, we still have 7 minutes.
9:45.
At 9:20.
No, it was to extend it 15 minutes beyond the 9:30.
Yeah,
But our official time is 9:30.
The motion was made at 9:23, I believe, Mayor.
Okay, well, then we need to extend the meeting again.
We'll extend the meeting 5 minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
So we have a motion on the table to put this on the next agenda to dissolve the ordinance. All in favor? Nay. Opposed? All right. Done. All right. So Facebook comment policy, we want to tackle that in the next 5
well,
minutes.
we can do it. Yeah, we can do it later, but this is what I need you to think about. So apparently we had an incident, I don't know, it was a week or 2 ago, when there was a really vitriolic exchange where people were personally attacked. And I was asked, can we take these comments down? And I was reluctant to, because you can't take one person's comments down if you're allowing. And Nick has kind of basically said the same thing. And so, you know, the problem with Facebook is that anybody can get on there and say anything. But I like it because you can get town information out to people more immediately. One of the things, and Nick may have a comment about this, that we decided in Crestone was to take no comments on Facebook whatsoever. We had a little thing that said, we welcome your comments. You can email them to the town office or mail them in or come to a board meeting. Nick, you had some concerns about that. And so we don't need to decide tonight, but I'd like you to be thinking about how we want to handle this.
Yeah, there's so much uncertainty in the law when it pertains to social media and government social media pages specifically, that anytime you take an action that could be seen as chilling free speech in the marketplace of ideas, so to speak, on what are typically considered public forums owned by the government, it can be an issue and you can face a lawsuit. So I hesitate to do anything that removes the ability of the public to comment on the town's Facebook page, because it has already opened the Facebook page to public comment. Haven't looked specifically at this direct issue, however. So if like there's going to be necessarily a decision tonight, that's something that I'd research on behalf of the town to see what the town's risk was in that instance. But yeah, even things right now, like using Facebook settings to automatically hide or remove posts could subject the town to liability. So Leslie was certainly right in hesitating to remove any of those comments, no matter how negative they were. And Leslie, I don't know if you wanted to get into the social media policy discussion as well tonight, the potential crafting of a policy. But that's another potential option of the board. One thing that towns and cities do in an attempt to close or limit is a better word, instead of fully closing the public forum, they set some guidelines on what's appropriate to post. Even with that, there's some risk because you are actually restricting what type of content that people can post in a comment or reply. But at least that gives you some parameters, and it makes it so that it's apparent that you're not discriminating among viewpoints, but you're just saying this content is not appropriate for our social media site. So there's some potential options out there. None of them are without risk. As soon as you delete a comment, there's risk. But there's also that line of getting out the government speech, as we've discussed before in the flag policy context, versus that free speech. And of course, you don't want to be looking at these nasty comments. They affect people. So there's that fine line that we need to research depending on what the board wants to do.
And I don't think we need to tackle it tonight. I would rather have a very just short discussion about this moratorium language, which is causing us more immediate problems.
1 minute. So unless we want to extend the meeting again.
We got plenty more time.
That's it.
We're not going to have an in-depth discussion, but I think Nick and I want to know how we're going to solve this problem that we've
Then we
had
need to
before.
extend the meeting.
Move to extend the meeting.
Second, all in favor? Aye. So
No.
opposed?
Yeah, you run out of steam too, me.
All right, so how many days do we have?
You better break the timer.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to break it up.
All right. We need to talk about this. I vote aye.
So we talked about the problems with the moratorium language in the code. And I think what we've already discussed is that at least from my interpretation standpoint, and I think, you know, there's two town attorneys that have agreed that the code says we can't sell any more taps, but it does say that you can add more units to a tap, but you have to individually meter the taps. And that, when I had this inquiry the first time, I went straight to the code and answered the question that way. Since then, I understand that you have had other legal opinions that are different from that. In my opinion, if it's not in the code, it's not real. So what I think those opinions were based on what was the original intent, but that problem with that is when you go to the code, that's what the code says. So we need to have and you know, there's some other inconsistencies that we need to work out. So I think what we want to ask you is what you want to do. Do we need a special meeting so that we can gain some consensus on how you want that code language to work? And because I'm getting constant inquiries. I just got 3 today. Can I build more units can I do a duplex instead of I don't know how to answer them because I know what the code, how I would answer it if I was just good at the code, but I understand there's different interpretations. So are you interested in doing a special meeting just to focus on this, or what do you want to do?
Put it on a regular meeting.
Yeah, but we get to fill these up.
Yeah, we do. But it's gonna be 4 or 5 hours of discussion just on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even before I was appointed and people thought I was gonna be appointed, they were approaching me about getting a unit.
Yeah.
I wasn't even, had no legal authority at all. They were already on.
And I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know.
Is the overlying umbrella still the zoning? Because if they are in an R1, they can't add another unit.
No, I'm talking about when
I know.
the zoning allows them to do that. The problem is that can they put a duplex on an R2 lot? Sure they can.
Oh, that's what I was just asking. That's why I asked the question. So the zoning. So these are not people in an R1 asking to add a unit.
Well, I didn't know the answer to that. That's zoning.
So there's that many. How much R2 do we have?
Every single opinion.
You've got a lot of house. Yeah.
Fact of the matter is people want to add more users, and the way we pay for our water system and sewer system is partly by tap fees. That's how it works. And it's not right that people are not paying a tap fee for water use.
So it's
biting us already. And that's where we're at.
Yes.
So that model is completely unsustainable. We can't fund the use of our system by increasing its size. That won't work. If we need to revise our billing schedule to reflect use, that will work.
Not necessarily. We need that $50,000.
Hang on.
Let Thomas finish his speech.
Thank you. So if the question is, does the moratorium allow the addition of a unit? As I see it, like, no, you know, that's kind of but why it's there is to say, no, we're not going to add more load to the system. Yeah, until we know that we can accommodate that load. So I'm know that there are a lot of opinions and people would really like to add more, you know, make more money, you know. So everybody's got to build, but I don't know where it goes.
The Davis are probably the same. As long as you go first.
Yeah.
May not say the same. This goes back to what I pointed out before to Nick and Leslie, which is that we have ambiguity in the code about what the word tap is. It can either be a virtual tap, which is what a unit is, or it can be a physical connection to a pipe. And so it comes down to what do we interpret the word tap to mean as it was in the moratorium ordinance. Okay. And yeah, maybe we need to thrash that out because you just can't have people hooking on willy-nilly. It's going to cause crazy.
And that, it was pretty close to what I was going to say. Because essentially, we have not made a decision as a board. We've been kicking the can for a while there. The previous board that we were on said, we want to be really strict in our interpretation. And then we had a legal opinion and said, wait a minute, you can mess around with it. And then kind of the floodgates opened up with that. So we do have a problem in that we need to define these things. Right. Yes, a special meeting to define these things and quit kicking the can down the road.
Yes.
And Trustee Martin's making a really good point about the capacity of the system. That's what the bottom line is here. What's the capacity?
And so, yeah, I think we're defining the terms in the moratorium. And then after, when we get our capacity and when we have the judgments of how much water we actually have, and we decide whether or not we're going to lift the moratorium either incrementally or all at once, then we can make a decision. But at this point in time, we need to make a decision on what the language of the moratorium means, define our terms, and make it dead clear. In the code. Yeah. Yep. And so, yeah.
Special meeting.
Special meeting.
No.
I know. I don't want to do it.
I even walked into
Another
this.
special meeting, but I think we ought to do it.
Mayor has the authority to call a special meeting.
Well, I need the board's approval to do it. I cannot do it by myself.
Oh, you want us to take the heat? Okay.
No, I cannot solve it on myself.
The law provide, she cannot.
I
I
cannot.
thought it was her or four trustees.
No, it's board trustees.
Okay.
It is not me.
You're gonna make the motion, Dave.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we have a special meeting to actually make some decisions about the water monitoring.
So when do we want to do this?
That's what I want to add to my motion, is what we're gonna.
Because once we know what you want, Nick can draft it.
Right, exactly.
You don't have to draft it. You don't have to argue about the meaning.
Well,
You know what you want.
we've got, 7 minutes. Can we say, can we make that decision right now?
Oh, no, because I don't,
That's how
it's a meters issue.
Be properly noticed. All right. Okay, so are we talking next week on the 17th?
That's scheduled through work meeting.
Okay.
Scheduled the mayor sent today.
Yeah.
We can make a motion out of mayor sent today. I don't have my calendar.
No, but we need to have people's availability, and if we set it now, then we can make sure people are there.
18th?
It's not for this.
Yes.
What time?
It's out for me.
Can we do it earlier in the day? Does it have to be at 6:30 at night?
No, it's better for me early in the day. My brain works.
Yeah, I would prefer to do it earlier in the day as well.
I'm happy with that.
Can we do it like at
1 o'clock on the 18th?
what time? One?
I have medical appointment day this week.
So you're out for
I
the
have a
18th.
conflict.
Yes.
Can you do it on the 19th? I'm gonna be here on the 19th because there's a holiday.
I can do it.
That's right. That's good for me too.
19th.
What time?
Oh, hold on, I got a tooth being pulled out on it.
Can we do it before you?
I won't talk.
You know, what time?
The 19th for sure.
Be quiet then.
Still on your
Anesthesia.
what time you're on?
Okay, it's in the morning.
Oh, thanks.
Afternoon would be good,
Okay.
but I won't be good time for your. You won't notice, don't worry.
And what time is it?
Good anytime, you're dirty.
Sure.
It's good for me. So I'd like to make a motion, we have a special meeting. Give guidance to staff and our legal counsel about interpretations of the moratorium for 2:30 in the afternoon on Thursday, January.
Okay. You have a second?
I'll second it, painful as it is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Those aren't.
Yeah, all right. I move we adjourn with a minute to spare.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we got through it.
All right.